You are listening to the Star Lores Podcast.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Are you stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf herder?
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard the Millennial Falcon, the ship that was named and inspired by the Millennium Falcon, which happens to be the central figure of our episode discussion today. We are reviewing Han Solo, or is it just called Solo? Solo, a Star Wars story.
That's correct.
Yeah. Joining me today is Jordan.
Hello.
And we have our special guest on. He's been on an episode or two before. Frankie.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Good.
Welcome aboard our falling apart starship.
Appreciate you guys making a stop in this filthy cantina earlier today.
Yeah.
If you could drop me off the closest star system on the way,
We're
we'll
just going to drop you into space.
Yeah.
When we're done. But yeah, we're going to be discussing Solo today. This is our review episode. Let's maybe start off with a quick roundtable about like your 1-2 word or sentence initial impression.
Starting with who?
Jordan.
Okay. Starting with me. My overall impression of Solo was uninspiring and the most Marvel-like Star Wars film.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. Yeah.
Yes.
Frankie?
Yeah, I kind of had. I was just looking over some of my notes, and one of the things I wrote down, like in the middle of the movie, as I was going through everything, I wrote, "This movie feels like it's a different story, and they just slapped Han's name on it for the name recognition." And that's kind of how I felt about the whole project. I was like, this doesn't even feel like it's about Han, and this character doesn't even feel like Han. So I was very much so unimpressed with it.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and agree with you guys that it was forgettable and definitely, I would say, a lower tier Star Wars movie. But I was also kind of pleasantly surprised.
Interesting.
I feel like it's been out for a while now, and I actually hadn't seen it until now.
Same.
So I've been like immersed in like the popular opinion of it for years. So it's entirely possible that I already had such a jaded view before I even went into it that I'm like, well, it wasn't that bad. Which I'm open to having that kind of pre-bias. There were definitely some elements that I liked, but overall, yeah, I would definitely agree that it's definitely, I'd use the word forgettable. Like,
For sure.
you know, if you ask me in a month from now kind of what the major plot and story beats were, I probably couldn't tell you, which is not a good sign for a movie based on one of Star Wars' most popular characters.
Yeah.
And I'll even say this is a second go around I've seen it because I did see it around. I think I actually saw it in theaters when it came out.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And watching it again, there's like all these plot points and scenes I completely forgot about. Just to that point.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
It's like, oh, yeah. Like, it feels like I was almost watching the movie. Other than I would say like kind of the sort of last chapter of the film, I would say I remembered, but everything before that, it was like hard to remember.
Yeah.
I forgot what I was going to say. That's okay.
It's all good.
Yeah. Well, let's in regards to the theater opening, like this was one of the worst box office Star Wars movies, just objectively speaking. I do feel like a lot of that was due to it coming on the heels of The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
And that was one of kind of my like changing of opinions, was like The Last Jedi was so bad it bombed the film after it rather than the film itself.
Yeah.
Have you ever-
I will also say it got I remember it getting a lot of bad press prior to the release, and it had also been postponed, the release.
Yeah, and there were some behind the scenes kind of conflict. Like they had a change of director.
Yeah, they had the change. Like Ron Howard came in halfway through filming,
and that's never a good sign for any movie.
Yeah, obviously, like the movie was already struggling before, and so like maybe Ron. It's hard to say, right? Like maybe that original cut of those like it was, I can't remember, it was some brothers who directed it, but maybe the original cut was better, or maybe Ron Howard just made it a barely passable.
Salvaged a burning flaming wreckage. Yeah. Either one is possible. We won't really know unless we get the original version.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, like, and I really, so I was kind of torn in it in that I felt like it wasn't actually, like, I didn't find the story to actually be all that bad, but it didn't feel like I was watching Han. I was like, this guy could be like a different character. This could be a different story arc altogether, and I would almost appreciate it more, and I wouldn't have been so hard on it. It just felt like it didn't feel like I felt like the character of Han was poorly portrayed, was one of my main issues with
Gripes,
it. Yeah, it just didn't feel all that.
I had
So
that
let's
same
talk.
thought.
Let's talk about, since we're talking about it. Let's talk about Han, the character, and the actor. I think, like, first of all, off the bat, trying to recreate a Harrison Ford character is next to impossible.
I was literally about to say that.
This is like,
Yeah.
it seems like such a Herculean task.
He has one of the hardest jobs in the world.
Yeah.
To portray one of the most iconic characters in cinema, in Star Wars, let alone cinema.
But not only that, just the most, like, he has such a sort of unique, recognizable, like, affect, voice, look to him. He's very distinct, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's very, and all his characters, like all of Harrison Ford's characters, whether it's like
Indiana Jones.
Yeah, Indiana Jones, like The Fugitive, like
Air
all
Force
these other
One.
films. It's Blade Runner, right? Like, it's very difficult to like recast that same character, because Harrison Ford created the character just as much as he tried to play a character.
For sure.
Right?
No,
So
I agree.
I think it's very, I think it is, it was almost like,
It's unfair.
yeah. So the actor Alden
Ehrenreich.
Ehrenreich, who I can't blame him for not really doing Han justice. I thought there's a few lines where
There was a couple times.
there's a few lines where he captured that
Yes.
that Han, but
I
it
agree.
was just like too inconsistent, you know.
Yeah, and that's why I think that's probably one of the parts that led into me feeling like, and I knew that going in. I was like, this guy has, like, you know, almost an impossible task ahead of him.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do feel like sometimes they find characters that are able to, like, I wondered how much of it was like him taking liberties with the role, and how much of it was like someone who's really done, or someone who's really done their homework on a character and really, like, because there, like you said, there were times where I was like, that was a Han line, or that was presented in a way that could pass as someone who feels like Han Solo.
Yeah.
But for the majority of the film, like I would say like close to 80% or more, I was like, this guy doesn't feel like a Han character. Like, and that's more so with the acting of.
It was the acting, but I will say some of the writing of his character felt a little out of character for Han.
For the whole movie. That was.
I wouldn't say the whole movie, but there was a lot of interactions that Han had where I'm like,
that is not what Han would say to that.
Yeah, that's not.
That's what I was saying about his doing his homework on the character, and I guess that would be more so, I guess, a directing.
No, that's a writing.
Direction.
That's like a writing thing.
Okay,
that's
yeah.
not like an acting thing.
Right.
He's just acting out the scenes that are given
I guess
to
so.
him, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, the writers in the writing room are.
So this was one of the other things that I'd written down, was that I was like, it feels like it's evident that the writers have never even seen Star Wars, nor care for the terminology or proper referencing of anything in the film. And that's what, and I guess, yeah, it comes down, and that was one of my notes that I wrote while watching the movie. I was like,
I think that's a bit strong.
it just, okay. So it's funny. It's a one single line in the movie. And I was like, and so after Han loses the sabacc game, he says, "That was bantha crap." And I was like, what character in any Star Wars has ever said even something as small or simple as that? And it might be something that I'm like reaching for or something.
Yeah.
But I was like, poodoo is like one of the most iconic like swear words that is like, or, you know, like how someone who knows what they're writing or someone who knows what they're doing with that would have, you know, things that feel like Star Wars.
Yeah.
Just
Christian, what's your take on Alden Aaron?
just a funny thing on the poodoo comment.
Okay, yeah.
Poodoo, I believe, if I'm remembering right, is actually bantha food. So,
No, you're thinking of bantha fodder.
No,
Yeah,
maybe
bantha fodder is
food. Fodder.
It's food. Yeah, but it's yeah.
Okay, I was just thinking about it coming out the other end.
What's your take on Alden Ehrenreich's portrayal of Han Solo?
Yeah, like I said, like you were saying, like there were moments, fleeting moments, where it kind of sounded like that could be a young Han or not. But overall, and I agree with Frankie on that, is that if it were another character that he was trying to portray, I could buy it.
Yeah.
But I couldn't buy it as being a young Han Solo.
Yeah.
And that again, that's nothing against Alden. I haven't seen him in anything else. I'd like to see him in something else. I think Hayden Christensen gets a bad rap too for his portrayal of Anakin, and that wasn't his fault, right?
Yeah, a lot of it was
so like,
writing.
and I
don't
know
understand
there
that.
was a lot, like Alden Ehrenreich was taking a lot of flack. Star Wars fans are bad about this. Is always going after the actors, but he was getting a lot of flack for it. And like you're saying, like if you just, you know, it's a crazy task to throw on his shoulders to begin with.
Yeah.
Now, does that mean could it have been done better by someone else? I'm open to that too.
Yeah, it probably could have. But I always say you can't outact bad writing. You know, and there's just like a limit to how good he could possibly
Pull it
portray
off,
Yeah.
yeah. So to you, that's more a problem with the writing then.
That's kind of what I felt was like a lot of the writing. It's weird because I thought Donald Glover actually did.
I thought he did a great job as Lando.
A good job at portraying
Totally,
Lando.
I agree.
And he really got Lando's voice.
Yes,
very
there was
well.
especially in that first meeting. I was like, man, he's killing this. Like he did, and that's why. And so that is when I had decided. I was like, okay, I think it's more so to do with and I don't know if it was liberties taken with scenes and like looks and.
I think it's also a weird task because Han typically in all the other films that he is in, like Harrison Ford is portraying him, is he's not like the main character, right? And so they kind of had to make him sort of the primary protagonist. They kind of had to add a whole bunch of elements to Han that I don't think typically you would see in the film, and it made it a little awkward. I thought, like, I don't know. Particularly the one thing I felt that was un-Han-ish, if you will, or non-Han-ish, was like how head over heels he was for
Kira.
Yeah.
I felt like, no, that's not who Han is. Han is like a lot more like
A role.
Playboy.
hard to get.
Yeah.
Like he's not gonna like bend over backwards for a girl, right?
I would argue, and this isn't the direction the actual movie took, but I would argue that it could have been a way to show a character evolve into what he would become.
Yes.
Like he's so heartbroken over his first love that he becomes like almost like a player.
Like jaded, yeah.
Yeah. But if that was the intent, they didn't do it.
Yeah,
So
they didn't really
you can't
do
make an
that.
excuse for them that wasn't there. But I'm just saying, like, just because that's how it started doesn't necessarily mean that's how they could have gone with it. But I do agree with you that it doesn't. The Han we know, and then if there's no transition there, it's the same problem with the Luke Skywalker of The Last Jedi, right? Like that transitionary period, they expect you to, they present you with something, they expect you to believe it without showing any of the evolution, like it's unearned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how are you supposed to believe that that's actually Han Solo, young Han Solo?
And you know what? That's a good point to bring up in terms of putting the blame on the writers and not necessarily on the actor. Because if you look at someone like Luke Skywalker, same actor,
Mark Hamill,
even,
yeah.
And
Hamill had a problem with
and
his
Hamill
writing.
was like, this is not the Luke that you guys are expecting. And even he knew it. So I guess the more of that burden would, I guess, in that sense, probably land on the writers and not on the actor. But even in terms of like looks, and I'm just gonna throw it out there, I was like, I just didn't buy him his hand. I don't feel like he.
It's hard to look
He
like
did-
Harrison Ford.
Sure,
It's
sure.
like Harrison Ford, man. It's
That's
like,
true. But
I thought
Okay,
I
but
thought
there's-
he looked close enough.
there's
to
some
me,
times
but-
where like someone will pick like a de-aged person to play a person, and I'm like, that's pretty
Buyable,
good.
yeah.
That's buyable. But I felt like, you know, the dude's jaw was just like completely differently shaped, and I guess it's hard when there's only so many people applying for it and who are even, you know,
Yeah.
in the running for it. But it just
yeah,
through and through, I just didn't buy him, and that's why I was saying, I was like, he could almost be his own character. I would buy him as someone else, but as Han Solo, nah, sorry.
yeah,
man.
he kind of just came across as like a very generic scoundrel
Yeah.
character, and yeah, not Han Solo, like the
Yeah.
distinct Han Solo that we all know and love.
One big criticism that this movie gets.
I will say the portrayal of Chewbacca was spot on.
They got
I don't know.
they got the,
There were a couple of parts that I was.
some of the lines that they gave him were just, you know, not quite what I was expecting.
No. One of the big criticisms this movie gets that I don't think is fair either is people keep bringing up no one was asking for this movie. I have, and a lot of like fans with like very strong opinions that I actually like admire would kind of throw that tag out, and I'm just like, I don't buy that, because Han Solo is one of the most popular characters in Star Wars. Like, you have Darth Vader, Boba Fett, Han Solo's easily breaks like the top 3,
Yeah.
even from like classic Star Wars
Oh,
fans.
he's one of my favorite. Definitely in my top
Yeah.
5. Probably
Yeah, absolutely.
favorite.
He's up
Yeah.
there. He's like as iconic as someone like Boba Fett,
Yeah.
right? Who, you know, has his whole mythos, and like people swoon over the Mandalorian, and you know. So I don't think it was fair. I don't think it's fair for people to always throw out the, oh, no one was even asking for this movie.
But let me interject. Don't you think that a lot of the love for Han Solo is directed at Harrison Ford himself? It's not just the character Han Solo. It's also people love the guy portraying.
I won't comment on that. I don't know. I don't know.
I think that's maybe because if for me it just felt so hard to accept anyone who wasn't Harrison Ford trying to play this character.
Interesting.
That's just where it came down to for me. I just couldn't psychologically accept it, you know.
So
if that makes sense.
I don't know if I was actually one of the people who kind of thought that along those lines, that I was like, man, like, I don't really need an origin story for Han, especially like I mean, I was one of the people that was, you know, super ticked off right off the bat when Disney chopped all that canon off in the first place. So hearing their rewritten and this is coming off the heels of The Last Jedi, like, you just can't help but
and that's
feel
what
like
I'm
they're
saying.
just going to
That
screw it
taint
up.
is already there. Yeah.
Exactly. So I was kind of like, I don't want them to mess with anything like of these beloved characters, because they're just going to mess it up, you know?
Yeah.
And then also, and I don't know if I necessarily agree if it's necessarily so more to do with the actor than the character, because, you know, like when there's all kinds of people like talking about recasting a young Luke Skywalker for and I was like, that would be a really cool, or sorry, like a middle-aged Luke Skywalker, and people throw out different. I love seeing different people playing different characters, and sometimes people nail it and sometimes people don't. And there's like all this talk right now about getting what's that one guy? He's in that new. People were talking about getting him to play the guy who played Bucky Barnes to play like a young Luke or a middle-aged Luke Skywalker.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, who's
they
the
look
guy-
a lot alike.
Yeah, and I was like, and that guy's a good actor, and so I was like, I could see him in that role. I could see him as a Luke Skywalker. You know what I mean? Like, you could accept him as it. So I don't know if it's necessary, but I see what you're saying.
I think also the technology. I know, like, they have tried it in Rogue One and in The Mandalorian of interposing, like, getting an actor who looks similar and then interposing through CGI.
Yeah.
Deepfakes?
Yeah, like a deep
To
fake.
run a whole movie on deepfake, though.
No,
would
it's
be-
not there yet.
No, it is so close to being there. It is.
You know what? I'd like to see it. See someone try.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd like to
I
see-
think they could. Like, even though you could tell in The Mandalorian when Luke appears.
Yeah, it
spoiler
was still
alert,
mind blowing, and I loved
you
every
could
second of
still
it.
tell it was CGI, but it was like I was very happy. I would prefer to see like Mark Hamill Luke than someone who isn't
Right.
Mark Hamill.
But if they do their homework, I'm okay with it. You know what I mean? Like it's because I feel like it comes more down to the character and the writers.
I think psychologically it's hard. It's hard for me. And I did criticize Rogue One CGI of
I was
Grand
about
Moff
to
Tarkin.
open fire on people because of that. Because I'm
Yeah.
like, I thought it was fine on Grand Moff Tarkin and even Carrie Fisher too.
It just looked too video game.
I didn't mind. I thought that
I
of the
didn't
three
find that
of the
personally.
three of
I think
those,
your mileage may vary just person to person. On
I think the
that.
three
Yeah.
of those, I found Carrie Fisher to be the best one personally.
Yeah.
I thought hers. I was actually blown away. So much so that when I saw Luke Skywalker in The Mandalorian, I kind of had to remind myself that one was TV, and they didn't like have as
wouldn't- they don't
much-
have the budget.
They didn't have the same budget. But even with that one, I think you're right. Like even though they tried, and some would say they missed, and I would agree probably.
Yeah.
But I was like, it was just cool that they even tried, and
I
that
agree,
they
yeah.
and like I legitimately like teared up when I saw Luke on that, and you know.
Sorry, you were making a point about what was the point you were making? I think I interjected.
The fans weren't asking for the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What you don't think it matters if
Yeah.
or you think that fans were asking or what?
I don't think anyone was asking for anything. No one was asking Disney to do anything. But that being said,
All we wanted was more Clone Wars.
yeah,
That's what we wanted.
No, that's the thing, right? Like no one was asking for the Mandalorian, but yet here it is, and it's actually pretty good. So I'm just saying, I don't think it's a fair criticism. I think people are at the point where they're looking for reasons to be mad, and you know what? I am one of those people. I'm mad. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time,
It's
I
also
think,
hard when they give you so many reasons to
be
be
mad.
mad that
Yeah.
it's like
But
justifiable.
that's also when you have to be the most. Like,
guess what
I
you're
try
saying.
to be fair, right?
yeah.
And I am always trying to check myself and be like, is this my personal bias coming in, or do I genuinely hate this? And that's kind of one of the reasons that I kind of softened up to Solo as a whole, because I was like, I don't hate it, and I'm probably gonna forget it, which is what makes it bad. But I don't hate it. I hate The Last Jedi. I hate The Rise of Skywalker. I hate The Force Awakens, but I don't hate Solo. And Solo actually made me think less of Rogue One, actually, because you know I loved Rogue One when it came out, and the more I kind of dwell on Solo and all its portrayal, I'd almost start saying Rogue One starts following into the same tier class as Solo.
I disagree with that. I thought Rogue One was actually Rogue One. Here's where I felt okay. So with Solo 2, it didn't feel. There's like a weird feeling that wasn't there for a lot of it, where it didn't feel Star Wars. Rogue One nailed the feeling of the Star Wars universe. That's what they nailed.
Yeah,
I think they did it. Rogue One definitely did it better than the sequel trilogy, but there's still a lot of stuff in Rogue One that I felt didn't feel like Star Wars.
My main issue, or the main comparison I'm making between Solo and Rogue One, is that you have this like crew of characters that are new for the most part, except for Han, but like all the other side characters in the Solo movie are pretty much new.
Yeah.
And then you have all the Rogue One characters, which are just this band of misfits. But like you're not emotionally invested. And let's set aside Solo himself and let's talk about all the side characters for a minute here. Like some of them I liked, some of them I hated. But overall, again, same problem for both. They're all just forgettable cardboard cutouts of characters that I find myself instantly forgetting about, feeling no emotional investment when they die or they do something. I'm just not attached to them. And I feel like that Rogue One had the same problem. Like the only parts of Rogue One I remember are the ones that are meant to like
be
dig.
memorable?
Exactly. Like the Darth Vader.
Darth
scene.
Vader walking
And-
through
and
it.
Oh man.
That alone, like
Such
that
a good
alone is
I had a
why-
nerdgasm that
Right.
I've never felt before.
And
in
that's
that
exactly
scene.
it, right? Like I love that so much that I would watch
That
that movie
scene,
again
oh.
just to get to that scene.
I
right?
would say it's in all Star Wars. It's one of the top
Yeah.
scenes.
And-
And just as a single scene, it's so
And Rogue
good.
One, like again, there are elements of it that I love way more than Solo. I'm not saying they're the same movie. I'm saying there are elements that are shared between them that made me think less of Rogue One, where initially I held it up to a higher standard than maybe I should have. That forgettableness of the other characters.
We'll get probably Rogue One will be, I think in our timeline will be the next film we review.
Yeah,
So,
so I'll say my piece then. But
I think, yeah, okay. With Solo,
That's how I felt about the movie. A giant sigh. Just like,
The credits roll and you're just
yeah, I was like, I'm not enjoying
The
it.
second time watching it, to me, I felt like I was just watching a generic Marvel superhero film.
Totally. I could see
Throughout
that
the
connection.
entire film.
Yeah.
And it was like almost way too fast paced. And there's like too many things going on. And there could have been interesting storylines that were like briefly
Glossed
touched over
over.
and then skipped. And then like, okay, one of my biggest, I guess, a gripe I had with the film is like Legends they sort of pulled from Legends' hand in that Han Solo
was a stormtrooper.
yeah, he enters in, he
Imperial
goes
background,
he learns to be a pilot with the Empire, right?
Yeah.
And but in the film they just like
Fast
Oh,
forward.
I
yeah, it's like-
agree, dude. Okay, during that that battle scene, it also it felt like kind of World War II-y, so I kind of
Right.
liked some of that, and I was like,
Yeah.
that was really. I
aesthetic.
thought that they were gonna have, so that was one of my like kind of
Expectations.
because I'd heard people talk about how, there was you get to see Han as a stormtrooper, and it was like 5 minutes of the whole movie.
Also, he
And-
wasn't a stormtrooper. But go
yeah,
on.
he wasn't even a stormtrooper in this film.
What was
He's
it?
in the Imperial Army.
Yeah, he was just
They're
like,
distinct military forces.
yeah.
Oh, really? I didn't even.
I'm
didn't
excited
even-
to do the actual regular episode on that. But
I
yeah.
didn't even pick up on that.
Yeah.
I thought that he was
Well,
just
he
like a
didn't
different.
wear the stormtrooper armor though.
No.
I thought it was like a detachment.
version.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I didn't even realize that
He's
that
just like
wasn't.
cannon
Yeah, it was just.
fodder.
I didn't
Yeah.
even realize
the
that.
Imperial Army is distinct.
See,
from-
that's how fast they brushed over that stuff. They didn't even like.
So and so that's I thought they could have spent half the film
Yes.
with him in
that's
in the
what I thought I
Empire.
was gonna get.
Yeah, like and like going through all that and setting all that up, right? And actually so another of the bad writing is like, well, Han is like a super good pilot, but we really don't know how
He's an
becomes-
infantry soldier.
Yeah.
in the Empire.
Yeah, yeah.
There's like no real explanation.
And you don't
how
get
he
him to s-
becomes this great pilot who could do the Kessel Run in under 12 parsecs, right?
And you don't even see him do it until the last act of the movie,
Yeah.
where he takes control of the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, wait, why are we watching Lando fly the Falcon when it's supposed to be a Han Solo movie? And like that was one of my other issues is I felt like Han kind of faded into the back of the movie. It didn't feel like a movie about Han, to be honest. That's how I felt about it when I was watching. I was like, I don't feel like I'm getting enough of a Han origin story. That's what I felt. It was more of just a random Star Wars story, which was like decent. It was a
did
decent
feel-
story.
It felt very generic. I thought, I don't know, the story just felt so, again, so Marvel superhero.
Sure.
like-
But that's what I'm saying. Like it's not a bad story, right?
yeah.
But it didn't
I
feel
think
like
it's
it's
too
just
many.
tired.
it didn't feel like an
stories.
origin story.
What's that?
I think it's just too many stories smashed together.
Yes, I
right?
agree with
yeah.
that.
The heist thing could have been a film on its own.
Yes.
His journey through the Empire could have been a film on
Yeah,
its own.
yeah.
His descent into becoming a rogue, his relationship with Kira in the underworld.
Yeah.
All those could have been their own movies. Or if they spent enough time to develop
Any
one
one
of those aspects, it could have been a lot better. But they just, like you said, they're just moving through, just
Yeah,
getting.
yeah.
It's like they're checking boxes to get to the
So
end.
that's and what was interesting that I found it was actually fairly similar to what I kind of knew about Han from like the Legends origin story. There's like a 3-part book series that outlined Han's entire origin, how he meets Chewie, his time in the
Yeah, there's
Imperial.
like the Adventures of Han Solo.
I think that might be what it's called.
Those books came out in like the 80s.
Yeah, and it's like it's a trilogy of books.
Yeah, I think the first book delves into his origins, but the other ones are just like him and Chewie.
Yeah,
and
just
gallivanting.
doing cool
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah. So, but what I found interesting though was they'd kind of hit some of those points, and they changed stuff about it. Obviously, like in those, Han is a boy who gets scooped up by some guy, something Shriek or whatever, and they just changed some of the names, but it's like clearly that's who,
they were inspired by.
Exactly.
Someone was doing
You can-
some background reading.
Someone
Yeah.
was, but all of that stuff was, like you said, just kind of glossed over quickly. The box was checked so that it kind of quells some of the people who want to see some of that stuff. It's almost enough to kind of throw some fans a bone without outright pissing everyone off and saying he's born on a different planet, or you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
completely changing everything.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about some of the deep lore cuts, and then maybe we'll do some comparisons between Legends and
Yeah, we should do that.
and not. But some of the lore deep cuts, I actually was kind of impressed by. I'm not gonna lie, and it's always hard to tell when something's just fan service and when something actually,
There were definitely a few.
like some real deep cuts. So for starters,
Let's
Han-
real quick before we do that. Let's just pretend hypothetically someone doesn't know what a fan deep cut is. Just for for listeners who might not know.
anyone
for-
that's listening to this podcast should know. What
Yeah,
yeah.
obviously.
This whole podcast
is
deep
a fan
cuts.
deep cut.
Right,
Exactly.
right.
A deep cut. Yeah.
That is my cue to leave, guys. It's been a fun trip. I'm gonna take the escape pod.
It's just a reference to like
Something deep in the lore.
like
that,
more
Okay.
obscure.
yeah, if you're an avid
oh,
Star
okay.
Wars
You
fan,
you're gonna know this stuff.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, like a reference to a planet.
That's how I
or-
would have answered that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
If I was explaining to someone.
Exactly. Yeah. So a lot of the planets, obviously, again, I'm not saying these were good. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying they were there. So Corellia, like you said earlier, they touched on a lot of things about Han's history and backstory that came from Legends. Corellia was mentioned more than once than even just being like Corellia is an important galactic planet.
Yeah.
So it is cool to actually finally visit some of these places. Kessel gets brought up a couple of times. The spice mines, right?
Yeah.
It would have been cool in this movie if they explored spice a little more. That could have been a cool avenue, right?
That's also another disappointment. Is like Han is a spice smuggler.
Yeah.
He smuggles spice.
What's he doing playing with oil?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Space oil.
They didn't. No, I guess that's not true. They did I guess this is his introduction into smuggling with what's his name, the Woody Harrelson's character.
See, that's exactly
Beckett?
it. Beckett. Yeah, you can't even
Yeah,
remember the
Beckett.
guy's
So
name.
I actually thought Beckett was a pretty cool character.
I didn't mind him.
I
I
thought
think
he was
Woody
cool.
Harrelson's acting chops was just, and he wasn't trying to. It was an original character, so
Yeah, so
he
you
could
didn't
just
have
make
anything
it
to
his
stay
own.
true
whatever he
to.
wants.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I like, and I'm a fan of Woody.
He's so
Harrelson.
perfect in that in that sage guidance kind of
Yeah.
role, but also kind of like he's kind of a jerk
rogue.
sometimes too. And yeah.
And he's a scoundrel too. He's like
Totally.
very similarly a scoundrel character, like Han is kind of supposed to be. Maybe a little more cynical, but
I got it, Jordan. Woody Harrison plays the next Han Solo for
I don't think so.
Anyways, some of the other kind of deep references. One that everyone got pissed off at from The Last Jedi, the dice, Han's dice.
Yeah.
And The Force Awakens for that matter. It is a kind of stupid little thing, but just kind of clear the air because there's a lot of like Legends versus Disney. I'm going off of what a lot of, because I watched what a lot of reviewers were saying too, so I just kind of want to speak to that element. Han's dice actually appear in the original A New Hope in one scene. They're hanging from the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon, so they already did exist, and it was a cool little thing that, for better or worse, Mr. Ryan Johnson picked up on and wanted to develop into something more.
Did he start the directing the movie and then Ron Howard took over?
No.
Oh, okay.
But the dice thing it appears in
in
The
The Force
Last
Awakens.
Jedi.
Oh, The
No,
Last
The Last
Jedi.
Jedi.
one of them. I don't know.
I don't even remember.
Yeah,
That's how
exactly.
few times I've
Well,
seen it
Ryan
because of how
Johnson
mad I
did The
was.
Last Jedi.
Yeah, and they tried to make it a big important thing about Han's memory, but then to fans, unless they saw it dangling in the cockpits in one scene, wouldn't have any idea what it was or what it
Right.
meant. And then this movie tries to go back and fill in, kind of like, oh well, they're really curious, that whole thing.
These are really important dice.
Yeah,
to
which
Han
also
as a
makes
character.
it make less sense. So
Yeah.
I'm not advocating that it was a good way to do it, but it did exist and it was a thing that they were
Right.
they were trying to do something to appease eagle-eyed fans. It just kind of blew up in their face because it's bad. They're bad at it. Is my point. Things like the Imperial Army, right? The distinction between the Imperial Army and the Stormtrooper Corps. It would have been cool if they spent more time with Han on the planet. Going through the Imperial Academy. He went to the same academy even.
Well,
From
in Legends, though, correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't he a stormtrooper though?
No, he was a pilot.
But like a stormtrooper pilot. He wasn't. He wouldn't have been just base.
He wouldn't have
Army,
been in the
wasn't he?
Stormtrooper Corps.
Oh yeah.
Because the Stormtrooper Corps is very, again, I kind of want to save a little bit of this because I'm excited to do a Stormtrooper episode. Because
cool.
people have a bad idea of what Stormtroopers actually are.
Yeah.
They are mean and they're ideologically driven. They are very much like Stormtroopers in
They're
real
not
life.
just bad at aiming.
No, yes, they're actually supposed to be dangerous. And and Han was a pilot. That was
Yeah,
his
he
name.
was a pilot.
Yeah, and then again, it explains. Yeah, he's a good pilot. Like he went to the academy to be a pilot, and he
Yeah,
was a good
like
pilot.
so in Legends, and you can go back to our Han Solo episode, and I can't off the top of
It
my
was
head.
pretty early on, like 7
Yeah.
or 8 or one of them.
Yeah, but like we talk about this, how the reason Han got accepted into like the Imperial Army as a
Was
pilot
because he was a good pilot.
yeah, he was like
Yeah.
very gifted.
His skills made
And
up for his.
They
lack
were
of
Yeah.
academic.
they were willing to overlook, some of his sort of rogue behavior and not really listening to authority, which they did capture that in this solo film. Like, yeah, Han doesn't do authority very well, and he's kind of his own man. Like that is who Han is. Like, fair enough. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Again, it could have been done better.
yeah.
How did you guys feel about Han and Chewie meeting compared to how we would recognize Han and Chewie meeting in the books and in the comics and lore and all
I
that
think
stuff?
like again, the Legends just does it better because there's that emotional thing where
Yes.
like you see Han engaging with slavery and like developing his own thoughts, and that's actually what drives him to rebel against the Empire. Is that
Yeah.
he's like, no, I'm not just going to engage with cruelty for no reason. In Solo, it's just happenstance. He gets thrown into a jail cell, and he
Yeah.
happens to be able
Yeah.
to speak Shiruk with no explanation,
Yeah.
which is also kind of dumb.
Yeah.
and
I
like
agree.
So I will say I liked the nod to that, in that all throughout like the original trilogy and stuff, Han is clearly communicating with Chewie and all that stuff.
But here's
And
why that's dumb.
But obviously he would need to know what Chewie is saying to him, and a lot more people apparently know.
Okay, two points on that before. First, in Legends, it's actually explained because Han was
Yes.
kind of fostered by a Wookiee.
Yes.
There's a female Wookiee in the pirate Shiruk's crew who like kind of mentored him and fostered him and kind of like was this mother figure to him.
Right.
So he has this attachment to Wookiees and he can understand them. That's all explained
Yeah,
very
it
well.
gives an
in
explanation
Legends.
Right,
to why
right.
he would
In
know.
Solo, it's just no one knows
Why
why.
does he- why can't he do this?
And
No, that's a fair
further,
point.
and
That's a fair
further to
point.
that, like we know Chewbacca can understand English.
Yes,
So he doesn't need to speak Wookiee for
But,
Chewbacca to
yeah.
understand what he's
Right,
saying.
right,
Like
right.
it's
And
just dumb when you
every
actually-
species understands Galactic Basic,
Yes,
right? So
yeah, like it doesn't make sense if you actually sit down and think about it for a minute.
Yeah.
and it's less emotionally impactful. Like, yeah, Chewbacca, he sees a slave getting beaten down on
yeah.
and stuff, and then that's when the moment he decides, no, I'm not for the Empire.
Yeah.
Whereas again, with
In
this,
this one,
it's
it's
just
just
like
a random
random
meeting.
happenstance, and they just, and then that's such a missed opportunity, right? Developing Han and Chewie's relationship.
That was one of my biggest. So that's why I brought that up, is because I was so disappointed in like the reasoning that they gave for them to be together. Like it was almost more of like a coincidence that they end up together. It wasn't like a real relationship between Han and Chewie.
Yeah.
Like in the books where it's like
There's nothing at
Chewie loves
stake,
Han.
really.
Like Chewie,
Yeah.
they are, they come as a pair, and that relationship was just
it was sort of ham-fisted.
Sorry, quick jump back to the dice thing. I just remembered something. Sorry, the dice are always on my mind.
do
The
it.
reason Han Solo and Legends even had those dice and why they were remarkable to Han is they were the dice that he used to win the Millennium Falcon from Lando.
Right.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Again, that's so much more cooler.
I did
than,
not know
like-
that.
Yeah. Now that being said, I did kind of like the card game Pazak. Again, that's another kind of deep
Sabak,
cut.
I think.
Was it Sabak or
Yeah,
Pazak?
Yeah.
Sabak.
Sabak.
Pazak is
Both games.
is-
Yeah,
both
they're both
games.
card
Knights
games.
of the Old Republic.
Yeah, they're both card games in
Yeah.
Star Wars, but it was again another cool deep cut that they were actually playing a card game that
Yeah.
fans know and understand.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
So when they brought that
sort
up,
of
I was-
understand.
I also like that, like Beckett and Chewie were playing the board game.
Yeah.
In the
What is that
Millennium
thing
Falcon.
called?
I can't remember.
There's a name for it. Yeah.
But I like that they used like very close to like the original.
Looking graphics
Yeah,
and stuff.
the
And then
original-
Chewie tries to knock all the
Yeah.
pieces off, and it's a yeah.
I
no,
thought that was
agree.
actually kind of a cool little scene.
Yeah, I agreed. I also thought a humorous, just for a little comic relief, that I thought was actually well done in this, because every now and then in some of the Disney Star Wars movies, their comic relief is like, it is
Falls
Marvel.
flat.
It's Marvel.
It was very flat in this
Yeah.
film, I thought.
One scene that I did enjoy and I thought was actually pretty funny was the shower scene.
Oh,
And
yeah.
you see Chewie's feet, and he's like, "We can't do this separate." And I thought that was a perfectly executed Han line. I was like, "That's totally what Han would say,"
Yeah.
And I thought it was really funny. And I was like, that gave me a little chuckle. That was well
Yeah, that one
executed.
wasn't bad. I'll admit.
Yeah. Other kind of deep cuts. The Cloud Riders, I think they're called. That band,
Like,
of mercenaries,
Nest or
Memphis Nest.
yeah, her
Her
group.
crew. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
also another deep cut, a reference to a pirate band that had the same name, but they're completely different. And again, like all these elements, man, like you just kind of think about the movie, and you're like, oh yeah, I kind of forgot about them. There's no real like kind of, no one stands out. That crew could have just not existed, and I would have been fine with it.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about Kira, because she's supposed to be Kira,
Right,
Kira, yeah.
but she was obviously based off of what's the because she was.
I don't think she was based off of anyone.
For sure, she was.
No.
His first
Brea Theron.
Brea Theron, that's her
Yeah.
name. Yeah.
I don't see any.
You don't see any really?
I, don't know. I read
So
up a
this-
little bit about Kira. I can't find anything I can't find
this-
any source material
Sure.
stating that.
This is what I was saying though, in terms of where there was stuff that was close enough to the original Han origin story, where like you just change a couple names, shift some stuff around, and I agree in that like yeah, she's not an Imperial like officer and all that whole side of things. Wasn't Brea Theron an Imperial? Yes, she was. She was an Imperial officer.
I don't recall, to be
Her
honest.
whole thing was like she came out of a cult, and that's
Brea
kinda what-
Theron? Or yeah, she was an Imperial officer, and that's one of the reasons why Han joins the Imperial Army in Legends, is that he's like basically trying to show that he's she like sees him as like a non-committal kind of guy, and then he joins up. Man, if I'm talking just complete trash here, I'm gonna be very disappointed in myself. But
Yeah, I'm not saying anything about an Imperial affiliation.
and then doesn't she leave the Imperial Army and then join the rebellion?
She does end up joining the rebellion as an agent.
But she wasn't Imperial.
She might have become Imperial after, but not prior to Han
I'm
Solo.
gonna have to do some fact checking on this real quick.
Yeah.
We'll have to. The fans can fact check us on that one.
But speaking of Kira,
Ignore that entire tirade right there.
yeah,
Any listeners who's like, who is this idiot?
Kira, again with so many of the other characters, not enough depth for her to be
to care about her.
to care about her.
Yeah, I agree.
And
She grew on me, especially near the end.
so we'll talk about the end in a minute.
Okay.
I agree.
The,
I agree
the
with you,
two highlights for me of the movie are the Imperial scene, that war zone battle thing. Again,
Yes.
that could have been the whole
That
movie
could have
for
been
me,
so
and
sick.
I loved that.
I was
Yeah.
yeah.
And then the ending, I actually did enjoy,
I-
and we'll break all that down when we get there.
Yeah.
But before we get there, I don't hate her. I don't dislike her as a character. I don't think she's not believable. She doesn't have enough screen time or impact to matter.
Yeah.
To me, as a like, oh cool, you did what you did, but I don't know why. And I don't
It's
think
also
why.
a little jarring because, I found it a bit jarring. I don't know if you guys experienced this when, like, her and Han seem to be head over heels for each other, and then probably like 15 to 20 minutes later in the film they meet again, and it's almost like they've
So
had
you're-
all this time of separation, and she's like acting like she hasn't seen him in years. And I guess maybe we don't know how long Han was in the Imperial Army.
That's
for.
exactly it, though. It does flash the 3 years thing.
3
dude.
years time. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
did it?
Yeah.
But again, see,
I totally
everything.
forgot that.
Here's the thing.
I completely missed that.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
here's my thing: is that like you're supposed to keep that in the back of your mind, but it's
Right.
kind of like no other factors bring that up except for their relationship, right? That's the only telltale.
Yeah.
But again, you don't see this character. It's not done well,
Yeah.
which is why your mind is kind of like, exactly. You're
Yeah.
like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
And further,
The dots were hard to connect.
Yeah,
with
exactly.
that, yeah.
and further to that, like this does play into the end a little bit, and we'll talk about the end because I want it to be its own section.
Sure.
But she keeps bringing up the fact that she's done bad things and like
You never hear what those things are.
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
That was super frustrating.
Exactly.
Now, Crimson Dawn is known for like
Yeah, and they talk about what Crimson Dawn has done, but they never
nothing
say what
specifically.
she has
No,
done.
100%. I agree.
So it's kind of hard to buy her as like having any kind of. You see her at the very beginning, so there's not a lot of attachment there, and then all of a sudden she's supposed to be this big bad that you don't know the bad that she's done. So I think it's just like as a character, I found it really hard to care about her, as a whole, right? And again, that's more execution than it is the actress. It's more than the character sucks. The character doesn't suck. The story doesn't suck, but the way it's portrayed sucks, and it just kind of detaches you from it. Yeah.
How did you guys feel about? So going back to that, this is kind of ties into Kira and Han. Oh, sorry. This kind of ties into the two of them. How did? There's two things I wanted to bring up. One, I thought the scene when Han and Kira get split up. Han, like on the one scene, this is just kind of more so a movie making. Just, I think this kind of comes out of story a little bit. I don't know. You guys told me, but when they get split up and Han is like pounding on the door, screaming her name, and then all the stormtroopers on the other side of the gate, when they start looking for Han like disappears. And like if someone was in an airport pounding on the doors, screaming, like people would all know.
Hey, that guy's
Hey,
crazy.
that was the guy that was
Yeah.
screaming. But like the stormtroopers are just like, where did this guy go? And he just
Yeah.
puts a hat on and hides. And I thought that was just like,
It was a clunky scene. for
Yeah,
sure.
and
It
then-
was clunky.
And then the
leading
worst
into
scene
that-
that happens in the entire movie,
when he gets his name, his last name. How did you guys?
hated it. Absolutely, like
100% agree.
I wanted to throw something at my TV.
100% agree.
Here's the thing.
I know because I know. Well, let's dip into Legends Han again here.
Exactly. The Solo name has
Yeah.
a legacy. It's actually like a Corellian noble family.
Yes. Okay. I was hoping.
I
bring that up.
thought perhaps it was a little clever how they gave his name, but I agree with you.
I think
that-
if you're a Spanish speaker, like
I was
me,
like,
it's just
where the
like-
hell did they get Spanish like out of
Yeah.
this whole like, dude, what? This random stormtrooper just in a different galaxy. They also
It comes
speak
off as
Spanish
really
and-
dumb.
yeah,
Yes.
like, but Solo's an English word.
But it's adopted from the Latin and the Spanish.
I mean, yeah, but I don't know. I think that's
That's what I'm saying.
I
Like, the
think you
two
guys are
Spanish
you're
speakers.
reaching
Sorry,
on
did
that.
also the Star Wars galaxy also their English also stemmed from Latin down there as well? I'm assuming.
all of our words?
No,
stem-
I know,
sure,
I know,
sure.
I know, I know.
But when it's a name, like an actual proper name, it comes off different. And here's a side fact that kind of like is a similar phenomenon. I think the word Vader means father in Dutch, I want to say.
Yeah.
We've touched on that, right? So when Darth Vader has his big reveal and I'm your father, like to the Dutch, it's kind of either really on the nose or wasn't that big of a surprise because it's like, well, he's obviously called Dark Father, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just saying there are sometimes problems with translations. There's a couple. I think Panaca means something in Brazil. There's like
Okay.
a swear word or something.
No way.
Yeah. So like you have characters who like it doesn't come off the way you think it comes off in other languages.
Yeah, maybe. I think you guys are griping about that a bit.
I think it was bad. man.
I agreed. It just felt
do
thrown in
think-
there.
I think that name was very much the way they gave him the name Solo was very much kind of spitting in the face of Legends in terms of like
Solo means something.
yeah, because Solo was actually like a very proud family name
Yeah.
and like a wealthy
Corellian. family.
yeah, Corellian family. And actually, again, going back to Legends, Han's whole character is sort of him rebelling against his family, right? And like a lot of who he is like not wanting to be like how they were like wealthy and aristocratic, right? And in like but in this film portrayal, he's just sort of bottom of the barrel type of lord
Nobody.
class. Yeah.
No, I don't know, man. That I will give to the fans who say that we didn't need this. That's definitely a thing we didn't need. We didn't need his last name to be something that dumb. You know, not everything needs an origin, and that's coming from a Star Wars fan that like every background character has a life story.
Yeah.
I thought it was I'll take it back. It wasn't the worst scene in the movie, but it was one of the worst scenes, and we could have been better off as a society for it not being filmed.
Yeah, I didn't feel that
strongly. I
about
felt
it.
very strongly about it.
Fair enough.
real quick before we'll dive into the ending here. But just before that, some of the other side characters that I can't even remember. L3 did not enjoy it.
Yeah, not a good character.
No,
Worse
awful.
than Jar Jar.
And it's weird.
No, but very
Insufferable for me.
very contrived character, I would say.
Here's one of the funny things for me while I was watching it, because everyone was already bagging on her, again prior to watching this, and I was like, "Are they doing?" I genuinely could not tell if they were making her insufferable on purpose, or they thought she was a good character and she just became insufferable. I couldn't tell if they're like, taking shots at her
Yeah.
or not. I genuinely cannot tell if they were being serious. That being said, there is a lot on Droid Revolution, and like we've even touched on it in our Droids episode of this podcast too. So it's not completely unfounded.
It's not. However, even in some of the Legends material, I kind of disagree with their portrayal of droids being like revolutionaries, or I feel like George Lucas's vision of droids is like, yes, they have very strong like personalities.
Yeah, but they're still
they're
not
they're still like
sentient.
Yeah, they don't have free will.
They're not gonna. That was never his portrayal of droids, and never.
Yeah.
This isn't iRobot. This isn't
Yeah.
all the other science fiction properties with like artificial intelligence, right?
Right.
Star Wars has its own portrayal of droids, and I kind of wish they would just stick
to it.
to that.
Yeah.
Even
And that's not just a shot at Solo. That's a lot of the Legends authors. That
yeah, exactly.
touch on the droid
like,
revolution.
yeah, and I get the temptation to want to do that.
Yeah.
But I do think like Star Wars does it because there's so many other science fiction properties that already do that.
Yeah, they
Like,
don't need that
Yeah.
aspect to it in Star Wars.
and like I mean, the what was again another forgettable character, the R2D2 ripoff in Force Awakens. The
BB-8.
Yeah,
I didn't hate BB-8. I thought it was a cool character design.
The design might be cool, but again,
it was like, okay, you're basically R2D2.
Yeah, no, 100%. But I thought the design was cool.
R2D2.
Yeah.
Which they
it was
did.
just a way to replace it. But.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was a way to sell plush toys.
Yeah,
Let's be real.
basically. Yeah, it was
A cuter
It was a
R2D2.
Merc advertisement, but even that though, BB-8 was like a more like sticking to what droids are in Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
Whereas what was the name of the droid?
LV35
Yeah.
or something. I don't even remember.
Yeah.
Also like Lando's.
Yeah,
weird.
okay.
Okay, hold on. Let's touch on that too, because it is expounded later that Lando is omnisexual or whatever it is. I thought it was a joke in the movie.
I couldn't tell if she was being serious or not.
I thought that the droid was just like her head was so up her own butt that she thought Lando had a crush on her. Lando doesn't care because she's just a robot. But then they did go retroactively and canonize it. So now it is true that, yeah, Lando has a thing for robots.
I don't like that
But-
at all.
Which I don't either. That totally, like,
not
Lando
okay.
Calrissian, the womanizer, is now...
Yeah.
And now into
Into-
metal.
But it's just not.
That's the most metal thing
not
I've
who
ever
he
heard.
is. Yeah.
I will say, just to run back there a minute. Yeah, I was on some type of Bacta when I was reading about Bria, because yes, she was not any type of Imperial. So I need to make that.
But that scene where, so I didn't mind again, I mentioned before, I didn't mind Donald Glover's betrayal of Lando. However,
Betrayal or portrayal?
portrayal. Sorry, did I say betrayal?
You did, yeah.
Maybe it was a Freudian slip.
Yeah, with the metal. Weird droid addiction thing.
Donald Glover's portrayal of Lando. However, the scene where he goes after LL whatever
Yeah.
was super cringe. It was such a
So
cringe
here's
scene.
another thing that's like a total detachment from Star Wars mythos. Like, we see C-3PO get blasted to pieces and put back together and he's fine.
Yes.
I was thinking
So,
that
like,
exact same thing.
L3, like, that, none of that, that didn't even jive
okay,
with.
so
like,
hang on.
lore.
I was thinking about that more and more though, because I had that exact same thought, and yeah, I think it depends maybe where the damage to the droid takes place, right?
Sure, yeah. If you destroy like his
If
memory core,
the same
yeah.
with a computer, right? If like you
Yeah.
shoot through a motherboard or whatever, it's probably not going to work anymore, right? Like, or if you destroy its memory unit or something. I don't know how computers work. I barely know how I work, but anyways, but yeah, I would assume depending on where the droid, because we do also see. I was thinking about this too, right? I was like, how many times have Jedi cut through a battle droid,
Yeah.
and that thing is down, right? Like,
Yeah, make model. Like there's all kinds of different factors that will play into it.
But I agree. That same thought crossed my head. I was like, we literally watched C-3PO be blown into several pieces several times and put back together, and he's totally, or even R2-D2 gets shot in the face and survives,
and
and
to
on
have
the
this
back
emotional dying moment.
dying scene, which she then doesn't
was
even
such a
die because they
cringe.
just put her in the ship, and
I thought that scene was so cringe, and
where he's running out into the field.
Yeah.
And now you're also haunted forever by the fact that her being such an unbearable character is now the Millennial Falcon's
yeah,
computer.
that was also
So
weird.
then
I
you're
know
just
they
like-
just kept her
But
forever.
and the way they set up the scene, they made the scene as if you were supposed to really like have this
Care?
emotional
I was like,
reaction.
I was like, oh my gosh, finally, they finally shot her.
Yeah, when it's like I don't know if anyone
Had that reaction.
felt that strongly about this character, right? Like
Also,
definitely, I would say definitely probably the worst character in that whole film.
to quickly touch on, I know there was a big, like, Disney had made a huge deal about L3 as well being like a female droid.
I don't even remember that, but if
Yeah,
that's true,
during the release of
a huge
I
piss off.
I think I remember that, and I could be maybe projecting or something here. I don't know, just an anger into Disney, but which was
Droids
not even
don't
true.
Have genders.
No, but
They're
which
droids.
Sure, but like the voice, even though, like, but
I
They
know.
might have
even in
masculine,
episode
feminine
1,
programming.
Yeah, they
there's
they
a
can-
female programmed protocol droid, right?
Yeah.
And so I could be wrong about this. I could be just
I
throwing
think,
more
no,
at
but I
Disney.
do think
but I feel like I remember
vaguely
hearing something,
remember.
people making a big shebang, and that was what people were saying. They're like, they're droids, they're metal, like they're not,
Yeah.
But
So
I
weird.
thought that was, I did not like that character at all.
Unnecessary. All right. Any comments before we dive into the ending, and then we'll end this episode?
I think just a couple things. One thing I kind of bugged me was, so you remember the train heist scene?
Yeah.
I liked that scene. I'm not gonna lie.
Again,
thought it was-
felt very Marvel.
I
Felt
wrote
like the Captain America. train
Right.
scene. It was basically the same
So
thing.
in my notes when another thing I wrote about that was I felt like can't find it anywhere. Oh yeah, I thought the magnetic boots were kind of cool. It makes sense. We've seen that in other comics and stuff. And I thought it was a cool scene. It was enjoyable. And then it felt like it was reminiscent to me of like a spaghetti Western train heist. Where like
that
they're
was
jumping on the
obviously-
cart, and that's exactly what they were going for. And I thought it was cool. And with like the rotating,
I think it
thing.
could have been done better. I agree with Jordan. It's too cliched and too.
Yeah, it's been done.
Yeah.
It's been done.
If they
really.
did something more with it or made it special, but I was bored. I was bored in an action scene, which is never good.
But the other thing that kind of bugged me a little bit was like the speeders that they had. Like, I don't know, and I don't have any source material for this, but all the speeders I've ever seen depicted are like hovering crafts that
not flying.
yeah, they're
Flying.
not actually like, they don't take flight. And but these looked very much like the speeders that
Yeah.
you had seen in episode 6.
I would be open to. I kind of agree with you. I do think there's like an upper height that you can run speeders at, because all the speeders on Coruscant are technically classified as speeders, but they're like miles in the sky lanes, right?
Okay.
So I think you can do variable height adjustment as to how close to the ground you are with them.
Yeah.
And I would also argue them being called Cloud Riders. Maybe they have specialized speeders, like it goes with the name.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
they
that's
actually
cool.
fly up high. Like,
But
I'm
they look so similar to the speeders.
like the swoops.
Yeah, the swoop bikes, right?
Yeah,
Like,
which are supposed to be more like motorcycles. Yeah,
yeah, and they're supposed to be like more hovercraft than they
Yeah.
are like a
Flying.
flying thing. So no, I just had a slight gripe.
One character that I thought I actually liked, and funny enough, he's got the same name as one of my best friends. The character Rio.
yeah. I liked him.
I
too,
liked
actually.
Rio. I thought he was a cool
Really?
character. Yeah, and I felt
forgettable.
like he had a bunch of lines that felt more like Han Solo lines than Han Solo did when talking to Rio. And I was like, why
That
don't they
should be
just-
him saying
Yeah,
those things.
exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, man, this guy's a pretty cool character. And
So I will say that Rio, this is a trope that's coming out of Star Wars movies too. I liked him, but he's also like this kind of snippy, sarcastic character is
Yeah,
becoming a Star Wars trope that
Yeah.
is starting to irritate me just because it keeps coming up.
I thought he was very tropey. I also, it bugged me how much CGI, just the depiction of the character and a lot of the aliens throughout the film, but him especially, like it's just all CGI. None of it is
Practical.
like
practical
they
effects?
don't want to put the effort into.
I mean, for a monkey with
I
six
know
arms,
it's.
you gotta-
I know. I like. Yeah.
I didn't mind him. I
Yeah,
thought he was,
I quite enjoyed him,
I enjoyed him.
despite my gripe.
Yeah.
Like they better not keep inserting this like
They will.
snippy
You know
alien
they will.
sidekick. And I know they're going to, and
they're
it's gonna
cookie
piss
cutting.
me
They're
off.
cookie cutting Star Wars
And it's
now,
gonna-
and
yeah.
we
I
can
didn't-
all see it.
yeah.
Every
I don't know.
Star
I
Wars
didn't care.
movie for the
I
next
didn't
10
care.
years will be the same as every other one.
Yeah, and then real quick too, Beckett's partner too, another relationship that's just like
Yo,
undeveloped.
dude, and
She
then when she
dies-
dies, it's like he's like over it in the next scene, and they're supposed
Yeah,
to be.
and
like
I know
these
they're trying to portray him as being this like,
star-crossed.
yeah, exactly. He's acting all star-crossed, and then he's like this stone cold, like, you know, you're just in the world by
Yeah,
yourself.
it's
And
true.
But it just comes off so
not well.
It's a little
done.
jarring.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't buy it. I couldn't.
What
believe it.
scenes before we kind of wrap things up here? What scenes did you guys enjoy, or what scenes, or what
I liked.
what did you like about it?
I like
if
the
anything,
depictions of like Corellia. I actually like. I wanted to do like more reading on the lore of what's her name, Lady Proxima. That that
worm thing?
Crime boss
lady. I thought that could have been a whole interesting lore to discover. And I have read up. It looks like there's a little bit. There's some comic books and stuff on her, and there she has a whole crime syndicate of her own, but it's more small potatoes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was cool. Yeah, I don't know.
Nothing else really stands out.
Yeah, it just kind of,
Did you-
it wasn't like awful, but it was just like
Yeah.
kind of a yawn fest for me.
Yeah. For me, the two highlights I mentioned at the start, but the muddy war zone battlefield.
Yeah.
I love that. And I want to see more of that for Star Wars.
Yeah.
And the ending, which we'll dive into here after you.
Yeah,
say your piece.
Also the ending, I didn't mind the ending as
Yeah.
well.
I actually enjoyed the ending as well.
Did you have any quick comments on any scenes that
trying
you
to-
enjoyed?
No, I think I kind of mentioned them
Your
for the
part.
most part.
Yeah.
The scenes that I did enjoy were so fast and they were too small of a part in the movie that
They don't have any lasting impact.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was unfortunate.
Seems like a lot of missed opportunities throughout the film.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's dive into the ending here.
Oh wait, sorry, the Kessel Run. What did you guys think about the actual Kessel Run
See,
itself?
like there's all these parts that
yeah,
you just
no,
forget
exactly,
about.
totally.
I didn't like it.
I didn't like it either.
It was boring. I think it's kind of dumb the way they did the space lane thing. I at least appreciate that they fixed the parsec question being
Of a
measurement
time or
rather
a
than
a distance. Yeah.
So I'll give them credit for at least fixing that. That aside, but then the other side of it, like a lot of fans thought it was like so reminiscent of Han just lying, saying like, "Oh yeah, we did the Kessel Run." Like it shows that Han doesn't even know what he's talking about when he's lying, right? He's like,
Right,
"Oh, we did the
right.
Kessel Run in 12 parsecs," and like that doesn't even make sense. So there were fans that were kind of annoyed that like it wasn't. You could take it as not
In
being
fixing it, they kind of pissed off
right.
people
Exactly.
who
They didn't
thought it didn't need fixing,
Exactly.
quote unquote. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's my personal take. I'm okay with it either way.
Yeah, you kind of
And
take
the
everything Han says with a grain of salt.
the nose escape pod, like the random. I was like, what that? I was. So when I saw the first, I was like, something's wrong with the Millennium. What the heck did they put between the nose of the Millennium Falcon?
Yeah,
Why did
they're-
they do that? And then they turned it into a escape pod, and I was like, why did they do that? That just didn't need. That was just
They did it to
change for
sell
the sake of
toys.
change. A retro Millennium Falcon.
Well, they needed it as like a plot device too to get to escape that.
that weird squid.
But
Yeah.
did they though? But did they? That's my question, right? Like,
Did they need the squid?
when you, right, exactly. There's so many things they just write in that you're just like, that could have
Yeah,
been
that
done.
squid thing again was like such a Marvel move.
No, I disagree with that. Think about like in Naboo when they're doing the underwater thing and all those. I thought those things when I was a kid. I thought those things were cool. Like
But
those,
this is
and
such
Star
a-
Wars is so known for having beasts, you know,
Yeah, it's the same
Sarlacc
with the big,
pits or Krat
Gorgoroth,
dragons, or
Space worm.
I think it's very that I
It
didn't
is-
actually.
I think it was a callback to the space worm. Like,
Yeah.
the Millennium Falcon ends up in a.
Yeah, I thought more. I agree.
Yeah.
It kind of more irked my chain.
Perhaps.
more in that.
I guess
direction.
you're not wrong, but it just felt like they were just trying to fill up the movie with as many action scenes as they could, and that was just like one of.
I just didn't like the whole setup of like the lanes and like a Star Destroyer just like parked in the middle.
I know that
blocking
was
it.
so
It's
like
Yeah.
random. It's like, why is that
I don't know if I
there?
even got it.
And this is
how they were trying
how
to-
it works. And
Yeah.
even like this is the second time they've done that. They did the same thing with hiding the stupid Sith planet Exegol, right? Like the Wayfinder and the space around it is just so chaotic and blah blah. Blah. It's just that's not even how space is, and it's just dumb. And also, like Star Wars is guilty of that, like the asteroid belt that they fly through. But at least it was like it's just so over sensationalized. There's just like so much.
You mean the potato belt that they flew through?
Yes. yeah, like
Did you know
asteroids.
that those are just pictures of potatoes?
Yeah.
in the original Star Wars.
I think I would have been happy if they just did like a Star Destroyer found them and chased them through this hyperspace lane, and rather than them like this squid thing, then running into a Star Destroyer
And the black
running
hole,
into
the
a
mob.
star
And the
Oh,
random
and then a black
and,
hole.
and then the oil
So
needs
much
to get the
that.
power to work and get them out
It was
faster.
so like unnecessary. All of it.
Yeah. No, I agree. All right.
Yeah, did not like the Kessel Run. Got two thumbs down from.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely was not what I would have pictured the Kessler Run to look like.
Yeah.
And just a missed opportunity. All right. Let's skip to the end then. So we probably should have mentioned spoilers before we started this whole podcast. But spoilers
bit late.
now. We kind of have like a triple double cross situation going on where everyone's crossing everyone. I like that.
It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad.
Yeah, and I bought it. Like I'm like, yeah, these characters are it's showing like everyone's cutthroat. Like that's you know, if that was the theme of the movie and they like built the whole movie to be built on
Yeah.
like the galaxy's a hard, cruel place.
Yeah, that
everyone
would've
does
been
what they
sick.
need to do to survive. 1000% behind that kind of story. And you could have followed Kira doing bad things just to survive and like her losing her innocence over time and just
Totally.
like her soul and like there's so much they could have done.
Sounds like a
better.
great solo movie you just
Right,
wrote there.
exactly.
And that could have built Solo's
Yeah,
character
and Solo,
too.
you know, you could
Yeah.
have like a foil with Solo, and like
Yeah.
he's going
Yeah.
from like a
Totally.
hard bitten, you know. There's a million ways you could have cut this way better, but the ending was. I appreciated the ending. I liked this like double cross. It genuinely had me guessing like where people's motives are, which a lot of movies, you know, are so
Don't do that well.
predictable these
Yeah.
days. You like, oh yeah, you know how things are going to pan out. But they did actually, and even I did like that Solo did get the upper hand to just being like expecting to be crossed.
Yeah.
They didn't earn that. They didn't build up the character to have
no.
that. But at least I appreciated like he was smart enough to catch on and to
Totally.
pull the double cross. Which also leads me to one point that I also did appreciate was him shooting the first shot against.
Yes,
Yeah.
I loved that against
Yeah.
Beckett. As soon as that happened, like mid getting, I was like, that was the most hand thing
Yeah.
he did in the whole
Yeah.
movie.
And that like,
But then they ruined it by having him run up to this guy and be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I just shot you and killed you." But even that was
didn't
okay
care.
because I thought it was cool when Beckett was like, "I'd have killed you, and you know I would have killed you, so you made the right call." So they saved it, but
I didn't care.
for
that he
you,
did
it's just
that.
hard to make sense of.
Yeah.
You just shot this guy and then you run over to. Like,
yeah,
Sorry.
But I thought that was one of the that was one of the moments they got really well done.
Yeah, and that it made me appreciate it at the end that like, oh yeah, they are trying to build Han into the Han that we know. And again, kind of another deep cut like the Star Wars fans with Greedo, right? Like Han Solo is a rogue. He will shoot you first.
Yeah.
Hand shot first.
And I do like that like the Kira story ends badly, right? Like
Yeah.
Kira
it's not
stays a
happy
bad
ending.
guy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
And then the big reveal of Darth Maul, People I think had mixed feelings on it. I was cool with it.
I liked
I
it.
didn't mind it at all.
I liked
yeah,
it.
I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
Man, anytime you get more Darth Maul screen time in any Star Wars movie,
Yeah.
I'm cool with it.
But I liked even that he was just like a subtle fixture. He wasn't like the whole
dominating.
yes,
Yeah.
no, I agree. So when I first saw it, I thought that they were gonna have Palpatine. Like,
Yeah.
when you see the chair and the robe, I was like, oh, she's working for Palpatine.
You
and
didn't
there's
notice
Maul.
the legs though.
I didn't. No,
Oh,
I
you
didn't. I didn't
didn't?
see that.
Oh.
No. Well,
Yeah.
I didn't. Wait, did it show his legs?
Yeah,
The
it
metal
shows
legs.
it.
It's like a
really? No way.
behind shot, and you see the legs are mechanical.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see that. No.
Yeah.
And I was like, so I thought it was Sidious, and then it's Maul, and I was like, cool, love it, Darth
Yeah.
Maul. And I thought it was cool that it was the Clone Wars Maul, kind of the, more crazy. They even got, I think they got the same voice actor to do it, didn't they?
Well, they got Ray Park to
Yeah,
actually
it's
play
Ray
him.
Park.
No, but the
I don't
the
know if
voice,
they dubbed
though.
his voice.
Did
I
they
don't
didn't
know.
dub his voice?
I have no idea.
That would have been wild.
Yeah.
Because there was that. So in the Clone Wars,
Yeah.
the Darth
Yeah.
Maul, that signature kind of like that laugh and that kind of crazy.
Unhinged.
Yeah, and I thought that it was cool. I liked it.
Yeah, and I didn't actually mind the whole Crimson Sun angle.
Crimson Dawn?
Or Crimson Dawn, sorry.
I'm chalking this up to the movie being forgettable
Yeah.
and you being
All the-
anything.
It's also hard to remember all the names.
Is
right?
Black Sun another crime syndicate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is, right?
That's
yeah.
the
But that's like
Prince
it.
Shizor. Yeah.
Yeah. But Crimson Sun.
Crimson
Yeah.
Dawn.
Yeah,
Crimson
yeah.
Dawn. Yeah.
Black Sun, Crimson Dawn.
No, I agree. I didn't mind. I thought Crimson
Dawn.
Literally. I thought they were pretty. I thought it was cool. I liked it.
Yeah. I still probably would have preferred the whole crime syndicate to be like a Hutt thing, but whatever.
I like when they expand the galaxy. Not everything
I
has
guess
to be.
Yeah. It's true.
Jabba doesn't have to have his hands in every pie.
Yeah.
I like
Also-
that he has competition. There's other syndicates out there that
Yeah.
work
I
and
agree
they
with
mentioned the
that
Pike
take.
Syndicate too, which is another kind
Right.
of deep cut.
I
from
thought.
the Clone Wars.
So I initially thought that this was going to be. Again, I didn't know anything about this movie until I watched it because I was so pissed off from the last. I was one of the boycotters who
Yeah.
intentionally didn't watch Solo in theaters.
I was too, and I'm proud of it. And I
yeah,
think we
me
should
too.
do it again.
Yeah.
But go on.
What I thought was going to happen was that we were probably going to see. I was expecting a Hutt show as well, and like having. I thought we were going to see when he dumps the Jabba's spices and that whole,
That happens
kerfuffle.
too close to the New Hope though. 'cause
So
you gotta
that's why
remember, this is
I didn't know
years-
where we were. That was another thing. I didn't know where Solo fits in
the Star Wars timeline.
the timeline. I didn't know how close to A New Hope it was and how far away from it.
I think
it
it's
was.
about 10 years before.
It would make sense because he looks like
Yeah.
he's about 20 or something in that, and isn't Han like 30 and
He's probably in his mid 20s or something in this, and then
he's in his 30s
New
in
Hope,
A
he's
New
like in his
Hope.
30s.
Yeah,
he's in his.
he's quite a bit older than Luke, isn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because Luke is like 18 and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I agree with you guys. Him like pulling the trigger on Beckett was a good move for the writer's part, and also even Kira's sort of double cross as
Yeah,
well.
thought that was cool.
and sort of her ambitions. Obvious, like she's not just this pure innocent.
Yeah,
heart.
she's genuinely become a crime boss.
Yeah. And actually, I read up a little bit about her biography later, and she does eventually take over the Crimson Dawn.
Cool.
After Maul meets his demise. Spoiler alert. But she sort of takes over and revives the Crimson Dawn. So I thought it was actually kind of a cool, but a cool sort of character arc and interesting. They also in the Disneyverse, she's like very involved when Han Solo is frozen in carbonite.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's like very involved in all that and trying to auction him off and stuff. So, yeah, she in the Disneyverse,
Yeah.
she gets all involved in that. So,
I haven't looked into any of that.
yeah, so her character is actually kind of interesting to me. So, and I thought they did do it a little better justice at the end, and made her character just actually interesting and not just sort of one-dimensional.
Good guys win, and everyone's happy.
Yeah.
And she suddenly falls back in love and
Yeah.
remembers
Yeah.
who she is and blah blah blah.
No. I actually liked. We didn't actually talk about her at all, too, as a character.
I mentioned earlier.
Yeah,
Did we?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we briefly touched on.
Oh yeah, that's when I got my entire
All around the
backstory
Brie,
of Bria
yeah.
completely wrong.
Yeah.
No, yeah. No, I thought she was cool, and I thought they gave her a cool
But-
cool finish there. And
I thought maybe that was also again a subtle nod to the Legends verse, because Han had like such bad luck with women in Legends as well, and he had always kind of been
screwed
screwed by them, stabbed in the back by women
in
so-
many ways.
Yeah,
Who wouldn't want to screw Han?
yeah. This is a.
I mean, we all have eyes, right? Like,
So yeah, it was. I thought it was good. I didn't mind how they kind of resolved her character in the end as well.
Yeah. And the main bad guy, thoughts on him? I don't even remember his name.
Dryden.
Yeah, Drayden.
Yeah,
Voss.
Drayden.
Yeah.
Yeah, Drayden.
I thought I actually like that actor.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good
He's a good
actor.
actor.
Yeah.
I've seen him in a couple different things. I like him. I thought it was cool. One of my biggest gripes of
He just felt generic to me.
yeah, no, I agree.
Typical
I agree.
bad guy.
I agree.
Yeah.
Typical bad guy. But one things that I really hate is when the bad guy doesn't feel like a bad guy, doesn't feel like a believable like.
Villain.
That guy kind of felt like he could have been off the hinges. I did not like the fight scene between Han and him. Like, you know, these random those were vibroblades, right? Or were they looked like a cross between a lightsaber and a vibroblade.
Yeah,
which
there's
was
some like
weird.
a unique weapon.
But that like knife versus like the gun scene, which yes, like a knife can beat a gun within a certain distance, that whole thing. Yes,
Yeah,
I know,
yeah.
Christian, don't jump on me. I know you're getting ready for that. But it just felt like they're doing like this random like karate fight, and then Kira comes in
Oh.
and
That does remind me, mentioning the fighting style.
oh yeah.
It's escape. It's on the tip of my tongue. It starts with a K.
Is it like a martial art?
Yeah, it's a specific martial art. It's actually like a deep cut in the lore too. It's Terrace Cassie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's an actual like fighting style that's been around since Legends and is actually like a pretty potent fighting style, and like Kira knows it and Drayden Voss knows it. So I did actually like that they were, again, with if you didn't know that though, like you're saying, you're just like,
No,
this fight seems kind of like out of nowhere.
No. That's not. It wasn't. That's not what I was getting at, because I heard that and I wasn't sure if that was a real thing or not. I couldn't, but it sounded familiar when I heard that. I was like, if that's a real thing, I was like, that's cool.
Yeah, I think
Otherwise,
it's even in the Old Republic.
yeah, that's what I was. That's why I wasn't sure if it was from the game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, it just I felt like the movie making choreography from the fight itself. I was kind of like, that's not all that.
Yeah.
All that
right.
great. Like I actually thought a blaster fight would have been way cooler. Like
Yeah, especially with being Han Solo.
Han Solo,
Yeah.
yeah. Like he shot his blaster like you can count the number of times he shot his gun
Yeah,
in that
true.
movie, and it just I was like,
didn't feel like Han.
yeah, like a cool close quarters gunfight would have been really
Yeah, that
cool
would've
in
been
there.
sweet.
Oh yeah. The other gripe I had was his blaster. It's like a standard issue Blast Tech blaster pistol in Legends. But then they made it like part
A
of
broken
back
down
as, like,
rifle.
rubber.
Yeah.
I was like, no.
Thanks for giving me this crappier rifle that
Like that is not this.
this is wrong.
very
This is wrong.
specific.
This is wrong.
This is a very
Yes.
specific blaster. That
Yeah.
is not. Again, these are like technical details, but one thing I did kind of like.
Hold on. The thing about that gun though in real life is that it does actually have like a
stock.
A stock
Yes.
that does come with a pistol that
Yeah.
you can actually use.
Oh,
but it's a
okay.
pistol that has a rifle stock.
Yeah.
Not a rifle that can be turned into a pistol, just
Right.
for clarity. But
Okay.
anyways, go on.
But
But you're talking about not the blast tech. You're talking about the
I'm
real
talking
life,
the real life gun that
yeah.
that gun is based
It's a
off of.
Mauser,
Because
right?
I believe it's a
Oh,
Bernardo
oh,
Mauser, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But go on.
Well, another thing I like that they at least tried to like make a Star Wars film without Jedis or the Force.
Though that was I noticed that too.
Like the only time you ever see the Force depicted is when Maul like grabs his
His
lightsaber, and that's
Oh.
like the only time
Yeah,
throughout the whole
I didn't even-
film, right? So
Yeah.
I thought I appreciate even though the film was pretty flat overall. Like I appreciated they tried to
Do something different.
do something a little different.
Especially in that timeline where like there wouldn't be
A lot of Jedi.
a lot of
Yeah,
Jedi
exactly.
around and people, you know,
Start to forget.
totally exactly. And yeah, I agree. I thought that was cool.
Well, yeah, like I said, overall, I actually feel better after watching it, but I will probably
Really?
forget. I
I'm
will probably
surprised.
forget it in a month. Is my thing.
I wasn't excited to watch it when it was released. I actually wasn't all that excited when you guys asked me to review this episode too. I was like, oh, you couldn't give me a better one to watch, because that would have meant that I'd have had to watch it. I felt indifferent while watching it, and my life is worse after seeing it. No, I'm just kidding. No,
Yeah, I sort of feel like it was everything I expected it to be, which wasn't much. So,
Fair enough.
I could have gone my whole life seeing it and nothing would have changed. Except now that I have seen it, I'm like, now that I know what's in it, I'm like,
Could have done.
could have done without that. I will say one final thing. When I saw the first card game and Lando beats Han in the Sabacc game,
Yeah.
I was instantly enraged. And I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
they got this wrong. Like, it's the other way around. And then they fixed at the end, and I was like, I like deleted it from my notes that I was like getting ready to just tear them a new one, and then it shows Han win.
they did
But
do a
even
few.
that, they could have had that whole
Yeah.
thing like played out more, where Han cheats Lando, who's cheating Han, and you know,
It
like
could have been, yeah.
could
done
have
a
been,
lot
but it was
better.
like, you know, they had to just toss it in there. They're like, oh, we forgot to, you know,
Yeah.
and I was like,
Yeah, like the Casino Royale.
Yeah.
Really good way of doing like a poker game, right? Like
Yeah.
they could have made a lot more
out of it.
out of it. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Anyways, guys, yeah, well, I think this is where we'll end it. We're gonna come up on Kessel here, and we'll drop Frankie off.
yeah, there's a nice cheap canteen over here. If you guys can leave me in there, I
Appreciate.
appreciate you guys having me on for this ride and listening to my incorrect lore for the last hour. But yeah, thanks for having me on the podcast. And,
No worries. And to all our fans out there listening, we want to know what you guys think. I know we're a little late to this party. It's been a couple of years since this movie's been out, but definitely reach out to us. Let us know what you guys thought. Let us know about any of the deep cuts to the lore that you maybe enjoyed, or if you did enjoy the movie, tell us why you enjoyed it. And you can reach us on all our socials.
Yeah, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Just search the Star Lords Podcast and we'll come up. You can also email us at thestarlordspodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star rating review on iTunes and subscribe to our Patreon. Also, this episode will only be free for about a week, and then
It goes behind the paywall.
It'll be behind a paywall. All right. So if you're lucky enough to catch it now, you won't be after.
You just played
after
your
the
solo
third-
card.
Yeah. Yeah. You. If you beat me in a game of Sabacc, I'll let you have access to it. Okay. Peace.